a lot of people involved in this league put on blinders and were just like, we know what we're doing, no one else does. There was a little bit of arrogance that existed in the beginning of this league by some people involved in the league that they knew better than everyone else. And that's just not true. Blizzard has never had an esports that was successful on their own doing, ever. StarCraft was successful, StarCraft 1 was successful because places, community organizers, particularly in South Korea, did it themselves. StarCraft 2 has been able to do it themselves successfully for a very long time and then was incorporated into the WCS. They have recently given it to ESL and DreamHack. Same with Warcraft 3. Hearthstone, a lot of their stuff is piggybacking off DreamHack as well.
Basically
Blizzard,
everything but Call of Duty League and
Overwatch League. I asked that question to Pete Vostelica last year at the Atlanta homestand, and he's like, I don't think that's a proper characterization that we're going to leave those other games behind. What are you doing then? You have left those other games behind. These games are what your company was built on. This is what people went to Blizzard for.
That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that that should be what is focused on today.
No, but guess what? The reason this game right here, Overwatch, is successful, the reason people care about Blizzard is because other games have been successful before for them. And they've always botched the esports part of it. This is not new. The way that they behave in esports is not new. But the people at the Activision Blizzard level, above all the people like Mike Morhaime and others that were at this league, thought they knew better. They thought that they knew this, and they used people like League of Legends numbers and used people like Counter-Strike's numbers to the same point of Emily saying that it was a monolith. Everyone thought that way, and most of them still do in investments, that esports is all one great big thing, and that esports as a whole, when you see these giant numbers, which is probably 1/6, 1/7 League of Legends, and 1/8 or 1/9 Counter-Strike, right, that compose these giant numbers. They took those numbers and said, look at this Newzoo report. Look at this Nielsen and SuperData report. See this? Come invest with us. But this company has never made a successful esports themselves. They have made the game and the community has built it. And they tried to do this inorganically with Overwatch, and it has not worked. That is my point. It has not worked. No one gives a crap about Overwatch right now as a game, at least at the large, massive scale that they care about others. And that is why Counter-Strike
Except for people with money that have not previously
invested in this industry. Yes. And so to your original point, I don't think that if the Overwatch League fails or if the Call of Duty League fails, that it will taint esports so much that all the investors walk. I think a lot of people are happy with the LCS growth. Franchises have grown from 13 million to 33 million in valuation organically in 2 years. That's not some wild prop bet. Riot could have gone out there and sold it for 30 in the first place, and because the Overwatch League was 20, people would have bought it anyway, right? Because that was the backdrop, is that this other game that League was way more successful right, it was selling for more. But Riot was very good about selling low to build into realistic valuations over time. Overwatch did the opposite. Overwatch went, we want the money and we want it now. And I would be surprised if some of that didn't exist because they flopped on StarCraft. They missed StarCraft's opportunity window themselves, and so they felt like they were owed. Guess what? You've shot yourself in the foot. You've done it again. Here's an esport that has a lot of problems, and I don't think a small patch updates, presumably sold for some amount of money in Overwatch 2, that is right now, if it's what it was at BlizzCon, is no more than just a patch and a graphics update. I don't think that fixes it.
Well, there are other issues too. Like, if you want to piggyback on that really quickly before we close out this point, like their entry into China wasn't great, and shutting down a lot of the native, because Chinese teams are ready to come in, and like LGD had a team, like a bunch of other really long-standing Chinese organizations made Overwatch teams as soon as the game came out, right? And you even had a bunch of League of Legends players going over to Overwatch. And then they subsequently went to like PUBG and other games. But I think because that entry was a bit botched, and then additionally, one problem that's been prevalent in Korea for a really long time that has affected the player experience really, really poorly is the boosting issue that South Korean players have kind of begged Blizzard to try to address. And I know in the past in other games when that has happened, people have made a big stink on various social media platforms, and eventually the game designers come in and been like, okay, we need to fix this because people are leaving the game. And I think they were really late and non-responsive in that in Korea, and talking to a lot of people, not recently, but like as early as during season 1. This is why you had so many problems with like people speaking out against the boosters that did make it into the Overwatch League, is because that problem was so prevalent that did stop people from playing in South Korea. And I'm not saying that's why people stopped playing Overwatch, but I do know it was that massive of an impact on the solo queue ladder that it affected people's enjoyment that much, I know of people that stopped playing. I was actually going to write an article about this a while ago. But yeah, I think that's also something that you need to mention, is that like it's not necessarily the game itself, but it's how it was introduced in a variety of regions. And if you want to have a global league, you really need to have it. You need to get a foothold specifically in South Korea and in China, because those are two very important regions to, being a major esport, in my opinion.